Joined by Richard Johnson, lecturer in politics and international relations at Lancaster University in England. Richard, good to see you again. Let's first talk about Donald Trump. As you just heard, his approval rating has risen in this new CNN poll. 41% approved now compared with 36% in early September. How can this be given the bruising and bitter and divisive Kavanaugh hearings?
Well, I think that it just goes to show how sharply divided the United States is. I think one of the most telling pieces of information from that poll was actually looking at Republican women, and 84% of Republican women have a positive approval of Donald Trump. And so that just goes to show you that Donald Trump is speaking to his co-partisans, he's speaking to Republicans, and they are loving it. He is delivering on one of the major commitments of his presidential campaign, which was to ensure that he would put a Republican stamp on that Supreme Court. And that's exactly what he's done this week, in spite of all the other noise and upset around it.
So let's talk about Brett Kavanaugh. We're just hours away from him donning the robe. It has been an ugly confirmation battle. Do you think he will eventually in the future have a clean slate, or is he going to be bringing some hard-to-shake-off baggage with him into the chamber?
Well, I suppose the closest example we have is Clarence Thomas. And I think that Thomas has never truly removed the stain of his confirmation hearing and the Anita Hill situation. But on the other hand, the Supreme Court has this practice of collegiality among the members of the Supreme Court. And I suspect that members who probably aren't very impressed with the way in which Kavanaugh behaved, say, at his hearing and so on, will probably put that aside for the greater collegiality of the court. I think that's one of the remaining institutions where, at least internally, I think the members still think it's important for them to get along. We knew famously that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had a very good personal relationship with Antonin Scalia, even though they were often on opposite sides of cases. And I suspect that might continue with Justice Kavanaugh.
Got it. So judging from history, the anger and the baggage will eventually dissipate. Got to ask you about the midterms, though, because we're just a month away from these critical elections. We got both sides of the aisle believing that they can capitalize on the anger generated from the Kavanaugh hearings, but only one side can win out. Which side?
Well, I think actually two sides can win out because of the two different chambers. And my prediction is I think the Democrats will make gains in the House. They need 23 gains to gain control. Hillary Clinton won 25 districts that are currently Republican incumbents. And I think those incumbents are very vulnerable. But the map in the Senate is very different. 26 Democrats are facing election. That's more than half the Democratic caucus, while only 9 Republicans are. That's less than a fifth of the Republican caucus. So Democrats have a lot more to lose. And the last time that a president saw making gains in the losing the House but making gains in the Senate was 1982. Ronald Reagan, his approval rating at this point was 42%. Donald Trump's approval rating 41%. We might be seeing history repeat itself.
So there could be gains by both parties in both houses. How will gender politics play a role here? We know that this is the era of the Me Too movement. It has also recently become the era of the He Too movement that's trending at the moment, that was ignited apparently by those comments that Donald Trump made, saying that it was a scary time for men in America. Again, this is linked to the Kavanaugh hearings. Will gender politics determine the outcome of the midterm elections?
I think in these House districts I mentioned that Hillary Clinton won but have Republican incumbents, I think that many of them are suburban constituencies. I think that suburban women could play a significant role. But I think that we have to remember that there are other factors at play. In the 2016 election, African-American men were twice as likely as white women to vote for Hillary Clinton. And so, as I mentioned, 84% of Republican women have a positive approval of Donald Trump. 64% of Republican women don't believe Christine Blasey Ford. And so I think that there's a gender divide, of course, but, Republican women are remaining fairly loyal to their party. So I think that we have to keep that in mind.
Richard Johnson, always appreciate your insight and your American political forecasting from Lancaster University in England. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
The former head